Hello and welcome back to my craft room. I'm very excited to be at last starting a new project that I've been looking forward to for ages, which is my vintage dictionary of stitchery. So I'm going to be following along with the little video series by the lovely Christine over at Create and Craft with Christine. Of course I will link her channel in the description box, and she did a whole series of, I think it was 175 videos, all quite short ones. She did them as a premiere live so we could all chat while we were watching it for the first time, which is really good. And so a whole little community built up around that, which is lovely. But I didn't have time at the time to get into actually doing the stitches. She worked her way through the whole alphabet using this book that she'd got, and also some suggestions from viewers as well, and stitched through the whole alphabet. And I think that's such a lovely idea. My plan and my take on it is going to be to do the whole thing using only vintage fabrics and threads, which I thought would be a lovely way to use my beautiful threads that I got. I'll show you the box. So this is like a shop display box kind of thing, and I bought this whole collection of threads which came from a lady who started collecting them back at the turn of the 20th century, called Miss Cheetham. So there's Muriel Cheetham, and there was her younger sister who was known as Madeline. After doing the story, I will link to my story. I went on Amazon. I went on Ancestry and looked up the history and everything, and it was really interesting. I love anything. I love a bit of social history, and I love being able to tie it together with a craft that I enjoy so much as well. So I will treasure these threads. Anyway, in hindsight, looking back on it, I wonder if these threads actually belonged to the younger sister, because she was also a Miss M. Cheetham, or was known as Miss M. Cheetham. Anyway, so I finally get to use these beautiful threads, and I thought this is such a lovely way to use them. I'm going to take you to the desk to show you all the bits and pieces that I've got. Here's the threads. Here's some of the documentation that came in the little thread box. She just used an old letter to keep her needles in, and probably jot down the numbers of some threads that she wanted to buy. Yeah, these enabled me to look up the history of the family, which is fantastic. It's 2 layers like a chocolate box, and the colours are still so vibrant because of course they've been protected from the light all these years. And this is the inside of the box, where you can see what's upside down. You can see all the colours of these Briggs silk embroidery threads. They feel beautiful. And again, the colours of these are so vibrant still. Absolutely beautiful. Now, along with the box, the lady that I bought the threads from on eBay put a note in saying there was this tangled ball of threads at the bottom of the box. I put them in as well because I thought you might be able to make use of them. Well, of course. So these are a minute. So these are what I managed to retrieve from, to salvage from that tangled ball of threads. So I'm going to be using these first before I go into the new skeins and things that are in the box. I also, while I was untangling the thread pile, I came across these, all of the things that I found in that tangled ball of threads, which you just look at these. I'm going to try sticking all of these onto a piece of paper and scanning it and seeing if I can print it onto some fabric. More about that a bit further down the line, but I want to keep a few of them just as they are to be able to look at and enjoy and incorporate, just tuck into a little pocket in my book somewhere. So to that end, the lovely Cathy Hanson from Australia sent me, I thought she was just going to send me one little piece of vintage organza that she said she had, but she sent all these beautiful pieces which apparently all came from the same old lady's stash. Look at these, lovely. I think this is a silk chiffon, this one. Chiffon, taffeta and organza. If I've got these the right way around, I think that's probably taffeta as well. Beautiful. So the idea was to make a little bag that would just sit in my stitchery book somewhere to keep some of those labels to have a look at, and any other little precious bits and bobs I decide to stash away. But I've got these as well, so I can do some lovely techniques and things using these lovely sheer fabrics. And the fact that they're vintage too is just fantastic. Some lovely Suffolk puffs from Christine, vintage Suffolk puffs. Beautiful little buttons on a sweet little card that she's made with it. Look at that. How cute is that? and some of Christine's Nana's Vic Rack. I've got an assortment of various vintage buttons. I think Deb Wrigley sent me some of these ones that are on cards, and these ones I think I got from eBay, little linen buttons, and yeah, so those will all be going in somewhere. So I've got all of that stuff. I've even got vintage needles to use. Look at these. And one precious thing that I've kept separately is this beautiful little length of handmade bobbin lace. I'll bring you down a little bit. Now this was sent to me by Paula Lister in New Zealand. You'll know Paula as Craftisaurus if you're in our Discord community. And this was from a friend of hers called Deborah, who obviously lives in New Zealand now. Actually, I don't know if she was born in New Zealand, but anyway, her family came from England, and this was made by her grandmother. No, it was, I've just checked it, it was made by her mother, who was born in 1894 and made this when she was a young girl, like in her teens, when she still lived in this country. So with Deborah's permission, I've actually started looking into her ancestors on Ancestry as well, and that was, you know, it's again, I just love a bit of investigating into people's ancestry. Absolutely love it. I found out some really interesting stuff which I will share with Deborah via Paula before I think about sharing it here, because that's not fair. But so this piece of lace was made by Joan Mary Atkinson, or Mary Joan Atkinson. I think she was known as Joan from what I can tell, but in some of the records she came up as Mary Joan. I think I got the right person because of who she married. How beautiful is that? So this I'm keeping separate rather than getting it mixed up with any other of my... I've got some lovely pieces of vintage lace, but this is extra special because I know who made it, and so I need to keep that separate. So that's why it's been kept on one side. Let's put it there for a minute. I've also got... This is also in amongst the tangled ball of threads. So was this little piece of tatting, look. So this little piece of tatting was in there, and this little piece of crocheted lace were also in amongst those threads, all tangled up. So they'll go into the book somewhere. And these little pieces of chenille thread. And then I've got these kind of vintage, kind of more normal sewing threads. So where I come to just kind of stitch the pages together and things, I will use these. I'm really trying to keep to vintage supplies as far as I possibly can. Now, unexpectedly, completely out the blue, I got a massive parcel of the most gorgeous vintage fabrics and trims and things from the lovely Christine Oakley, Create and Craft with Christine, I've already mentioned. This basket has got now most of the goodies I'm going to be using for this book, way more than I will need for this book, but how lovely to have all this to pull from. It was a small pile, kind of like, not exactly these fabrics, but kind of like that much. That's how much I had in these kind of lovely apricot and duck egg blue kind of colours that I wanted to use. That's how much I had. And then this massive parcel came from Christine, and just look, and she's taken the time and trouble to pick out colours and things that go so well with the scheme I've picked out. And there's lots of thread painting opportunities in here, lots of fabrics that will be perfect for trying certain stitches on. There's even a little piece of hessian in here for doing some drawn thread work. There's an old penny here, oh, and lots of lovely lace and trims in all these gorgeous warm, the camera does not do it justice, gorgeous warm apricot, soft whites, and kind of robin's egg, duck egg kind of blue, and natural colours. All these lovely pieces of embroidery that people have done, cut work, or just to look closely at these and realise that someone has hand stitched all of this is incredible. Now I've also got, I just realised I went past there, when I did I think it was the first Stitchery swap, great big little Stitchery swap coming up soon. The next one is coming up soon, when I swapped with Annie Cran, she sent me these beautiful pieces in with the swap. It was, I know they all had butterflies. I think it was this one. How pretty is that? Of course, also happens to go beautifully with my colour scheme. This one also with the butterflies. And this one, look at it. Look how delicate that lace is. And then all this cut work, embroidery here to make the butterfly. Absolutely gorgeous. And I think this one was from a bundle that Hannah sent me. So that's Hannah K Draws. I'm absolutely almost paralysed with choice, to be fair. And I've been all through this beautiful stash of stuff 2 or 3 times and sorted it into kind of lace and trims and embroidered linens and prints and, you know, to try and sort of organise it all a bit. One thing I want to do, as well as individual stitches, is to do like techniques like this, is drawn thread work. Put a little piece of this in the book and then have a go at doing it myself. And the same with the cut work. I'd like to try some black work, so this is going to be an absolute dream of a project to do. I'm so lucky to have been sent all this amazing stuff to do it with. Looking at all of that beautiful cut work and hand embroidery and stuff, and finding a little snippet. So in here is this little snippet of an embroidery transfer that whichever of the Miss Cheethams this box of threads belongs to must have been using. Just got me thinking. And then I saw Christine, someone sent her some beautiful embroidery transfers, and it got me thinking, got me jealous, to be fair. So I went on eBay and found myself this little bundle of embroidery transfers, and it was way more than I thought, because I didn't pay that much for it. I'm trying to think now, how much did I pay for it? About 10 quid or something? Not a lot, I didn't think, for what it was, because most of them have never been used. Nearly all of them have never been used. They just came in this brown paper bag that must have been shoved into in someone's loft. There's 3 little books here, which give you the little motifs, very 20s, 30s looking, those, aren't they? And they give you the basic stitches. I won't go through them all now because it would just take too long, but how beautiful are they? Again, you've got the basic stitches there. And you can see by the shine on them that these transfers have never been used. It's so amazing to think that people stashed, you know, people always had a whole load of crafty stuff stashed away that they didn't have time to use. Nothing's really changed. I think it says S will be. One of the things I love in this one, I think it's this one, yeah, they give a whole lot of different borders. I would quite like to work my way through this. So this is combining very simple stitches like running stitch and cross stitch, combining them in different ways and using different contrasting colours to create all of these fancy borders. So that's something I fancy having a go at as well. So that's really useful. And then all of these transfers, a lot of them are made by Briggs, which is great because most of the threads in that collection were made by Briggs. The majority of them were given away with handicraft magazines, with needlework magazines. So this one's the Needlewoman. And as far as I can tell, so that does help me to date them because it says given away with Needlewoman April 1937 or whatever. The earliest one I can find I can actually date is 1922, and there's one random one, I think it's this one with the colour. This one looks more modern, it doesn't say a date on it. That one looks more modern though to me, and it's woman's own, and just something about the print, obviously it looks more modern. And there's another modern one that is dated that was 1962, that's the latest one. That's this one from the Daily Telegraph with like a printed but typed instructions for an afternoon tablecloth with the transfer still in it. So even back then in the 20s and 30s, people were buying the magazines because they wanted the free thing inside and then not having time to actually use it. And lots of these designs are really beautiful and I would still love to make. Look at this one. What I'd really like to do, and if anyone can shed any light, please do share it in the comments or find me on Discord or Facebook and give me a shout. I would love to know a bit more about how this would be constructed. So this is for a mending bag. So you've got the shape, as far as I can tell, this is the kind of outline shape of the bag. It says handle there. It says wine there. I don't think it's to put wine in. That's my first thought. I'm assuming that's the colour, what they suggest as the background colour. And then there's a kind of a flat base. I guess you would just make a strap shaped handle. See where it says just a strap like that would loop over to the other side, I'm assuming. But what I love is it's got all of these shapes here, and where the dotted line is, that's a different colour. So this one you would cut out of fawn fabric, primrose fabric, leaf green, sky blue. Yeah, and so you can then applique these on and add stitching to them and stuff. I thought that would be a really fun thing to actually make that up. It would be really nice. I've done a bit of research already and I will keep looking. It would be amazing to actually find a picture of this made up. If anybody's got any idea or seen anything like this made up before, the technique, how it's supposed to end up looking. There was another one, kind of similar idea. This is saying this is Needlewoman and Needlecraft, made by Briggs. Transfers made by Briggs. A lot of them will talk about use Clark's anchor threads. These days we just talk about anchor, don't we? But I think they were Clark's anchor originally. And from when I was doing the research about the Mrs. Cheetham, I found out a bit about Briggs, and I think they ended up kind of merging with Clark's anchor. Anyway, this is a similar idea, only this time we've got animals. So it looks like there's a cat, a rabbit. I mean, how cute are they? A little lamb, a fox, maybe a deer. So what was this to make? Oh, a play rug. So I probably wouldn't make a play rug, but I might make it into something else. Anybody has perchance got a vintage one of these or seen a photo of that could like share a picture with me of how this would have looked, what they would have made it with? I'm assuming, I mean, it might be felt. They might have done it with felt. That would be the easiest way. Don't know. Anybody's got any ideas? Do shout. From that, I went on to thinking, well, I want to see some of these magazines now that these would have come with. So I went on to eBay again, and I got these for £7. Only sixpence originally. So these are Needlewoman magazines from the same kind of period that all of these would have come from. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any. I might just check through again, but I don't think I've managed to find any that match the transfers that I've got, and there's a limit to how many bundles of old magazines I'm going to buy to try and find it. Funnily enough, the only one that's still got its transfer in is the most battered looking copy. It's this one. On page 4 is where they show you what you can do with your free gift. So you can make a dressing table set, or you can use it. With this one, they're embroidering on organdy or crepe. Whoa. I don't think I fancy embroidering on that kind of fabric too much. So yeah, I'm very excited. These have only arrived this morning, so I'm going to have a good old look through those this evening. And I'm going to start off just following Christine's stitches and just do straightforward samples of all the stitches. And then I'm going to start trying to do some more complicated things, like actually using some of these transfers. The whole lot will hopefully end up getting stitched into my book, and yeah, and then I'll try things like cut work and stuff like that. They do give some basic instructions for how to do things like cut work, create your own trimmings and things. I just feel like I want to have a go at all of these kind of not lost arts, because definitely there are some of us still trying to do these things, but yeah, I'm just absolutely made up to start on this project using these transfers, these magazines, the threads and the fabrics that have all been through the hands of people who would have been stitching back in the early part of the 20th century. I just find that amazing. So I've been waffling on for like 25 minutes, and the last thing to show you is the beginnings of my actual book. Now this is the only bit that isn't going to be vintage, but I've excused myself this because I want the basis to be kind of all the same for this, and I got this in a parcel of free fabrics that B. Henderson sent out. I think you would call it a cotton sateen curtain lining. The only thing about it is you can't tear it, so I've had to cut this, and so the edges aren't very straight. I will neaten them up as I go, but this is the basis. It's going to be the basis of my book that I will stitch all my little samples onto. I'll add some lovely vintage pieces onto the pages before I stitch onto them, and yeah, I'm gonna have an absolute blast with this. I really am. Now, I wanted to decide on how I'm going to do my cover before I cut my fabric so that it would fit. And I've got this old book, which, as you can see, has most definitely seen better days. And I got it for next to nothing in a junk shop a few years back, thinking I'd do something with it, never have. Poor old thing's falling apart. So there are some beautiful things. I think I might scan this because I just think it'd be really nice to have as a printable. One thing that occurs to me looking at it now is if I scanned it, printed it off onto fabric, I do a thing where you use this kind of freezer paper. You iron that onto the back of your fabric and cut it to A4 size or whatever fits your printer, and then you can run it through and print anything. Now if I printed this onto fabric, I could then stitch this, couldn't I, and embroider that as the front of my inside of my book. That would be pretty amazing. I do that last fall. By that stage I'll have learnt the stitches that I need to be able to embroider all of this. So yes, that's a thought. I've had a little read of some of this, but it isn't all of particular interest to me. Any pages that look particularly interesting, I can scan them. It's lovely thin paper, so it's ideal for using to jelly print on and collage with and decoupage with and all kinds of things. So, and it is falling apart. It's not going to be of any value. So, and it has a very pretty cover, which is too dark for the camera to like much, but hopefully. So all of these shapes are all embossed into the cover, and I just love kind of the aged look of it. I just think it's beautiful. I think the title fits really well. It has got its spine, which I may be able to reuse. It's dated 1885, which is like the oldest date in that box of threads. That oldest document was dated 1885, and undoubtedly the ladies whose hands have held these threads and these fabrics and things I'm going to be working with could very, very likely have held this book, because it still would have been around at the time that they were alive. They were when they were young. I don't know what this marking is on here, but I don't mind it. It just adds to the interest for me. It's got this lovely embossed shape on the back and all around here. So that is going to be the cover of my book. It will undoubtedly end up thicker than this because of the bulk of the stitching and fabrics that I'll be adding, so I will have to create a spine, and I haven't yet decided exactly how I'll do that. There's various ways I could do it. I could just do a Coptic binding, or I could create a new kind of wraparound spine. I don't know. I'll decide that later on when I know exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to put this out the way, just put it there. I had it out to cut the fabric to the right size, and I just put it there just to show you for now. So all I've done for now is exactly the same as Christine did, where I've concertina folded this fabric but not stitched it together, because I'll want to stitch my pretty fabrics and my stitch samples and everything. I will want to stitch onto here, and then so I'll leave that page blank. I'll probably leave this one to do my whatever I decide is my frontispiece, and this will be my first proper page. So I'll be able to stitch whatever I want onto there, and then once I've done that, I can stitch my pages together and so on, and work through the bit. And so where I've come to the end, I've just overlapped them a little bit, so I'll be able to just tack those together, and then they'll be covered, because they'll be covered either side with pretty fabrics and things. You won't even see that join. So that's it. That's me all ready to go, and I think I just need to start in and put my first page together, really. So I think what I'm going to do is stop recording a minute. I'm going to decide what I want to do, get Christine's video up, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've got myself all sorted. Now the idea is I've got I think it's about 34 pages or something. It adds up to his sides I can use. So if I put 4 or 6 kind of pieces roughly on each page, I'll probably also have some, tuck-ins and pockets and pull-outs and things as well to fit everything in. So I'm going to aim to have each little sample of Stitchery kind of about that size, and then what I want to do is mix it together with pieces of the vintage lace and embroidered linens and stuff that I've got, coordinate the colours, or if there's an example of cut work which uses blanket stitch, I might incorporate that on my blanket stitch page. I also want to embroider a monogram for each letter of the alphabet as well, so I could use that embroidery transfer that I showed just now, the more sort of modern one that had the monograms. I might do that, Or I might die cut some letters out of fabric and stitch them on, applique them on. I'll think about that a bit later. I think the first thing to do is to go through and do the samples of all the stitches really, and then think about putting it together. But I just needed to have an idea of where I'm going and how it's going to end up. Christine is using a hoop, and I think it will make it easier to use a hoop. And she's drawn out the guidelines for her stitches and the name of her stitches before she starts. Now I've lost my heat erasable pen. I'm going to try it without the guidelines. I'm not going to stitch the name of the stitches Christine's done on the same piece. I think I'm going to do that separately and do them all on the same kind of fabric, on some linen or something that I will put through the printer. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that later. I've chosen this beautiful piece of really soft, you wouldn't believe how soft this silk feels. Now a lot of these pieces that I was going through in the tangled ball were already cut into a handy convenient stitching length. I assume that when whoever had these threads started using them, she snipped through, because a lot of them were kind of loosely held together at some point with the little sticky piece, so possibly something like you get in this one, where you've got these kind of little lick and stick things you could then wrap around, so you'd know what colour you were using. So I think that's what she had done, and if you snip it through the skein before you start, you're going to end up with them all this kind of length. So I reckon that's how they were used. So I'm going to do this first stitch that Christine shows is the Algerian eye. Now I'm not going to show all these stitches because Christine has already done that. What I'm going to do is link to her playlist so you can find it for yourself. And I'm going to do a couple of rows of Algerian eyes up here, and then save the rest of this fabric for another piece. And one helpful suggestion Christine had, if you want to work in a hoop but the piece you want to stitch into is too small, she used a piece of like dress net, like tulle that she'd got a lot of. I've got this stuff, which is the ends of curtains that have been cut off when they were hemmed. So I think I could use this in the same way. So she's used this to go across her, she's got a much bigger hoop to go across her hoop, and then she's just basted the little piece of fabric she's working on onto it, and then she can cut the tulle away afterwards. So this would do, if I decide to go that way, I'm going to keep this in with my box of fabrics now. Again, not strictly speaking vintage, although kind of, at least it's reclaimed anyway. But what I'm hoping is, because this little hoop is so small, I think I can make it work without having to tack it onto anything. So now Christine very sensibly draws out all the stitches first. Do I need to do that, or do I think I can get away without it? So what she's saying is, you come in at 12 o'clock, and this little piece of fabric that she put in amongst that package is just perfect, because it's got all these lines across for me to work into. I won't always have that, of course. So coming up 12 o'clock, come up at the centre. Let's go back to Christine's video now.
And it's going to be stitched down to another fabric anyway when we put together the fabric dictionary of stitches.
Really sweet, so it makes this little automatic kind of eyelet in the centre. Oh, lovely.
For some reason last night, I think Alex said...
Okay, so let's see how I get on being lazy and not bothering to mark out my square first. I'm just sort of picturing the square. This kind of fabric is perfect for this because it's loosely enough woven. It's got like two layers, so it's still quite loosely woven, but it's a bit more stable because of the two layers. But it opens up nicely to create that eye. That's really nice. So I don't think my my sample isn't going to be as perfect as Christine's, because I haven't bothered to draw my squares out first, because I can't. I'm so excited to finally get started on this project. I really don't want to hold myself up by going and hunting for my pen, my heat erasable pen. It's just going to be bliss to just sit here and quietly work my way through 175 lovely, happy, chatty, stitchy videos. It's amazing what a perfectly round eye that makes, even though focus, even though the rest of my stitches aren't very perfect, it kind of looks alright. Okay, so I'm going to carry on and do a couple of rows of these and then cut it off, and then I'm going to do the next couple of stitches. So what are the next couple of stitches? Hang on. So we've got arrowhead, I knew running stitch, antique stitch, Armenian edge, Antwerp edge. I think that's all of the A's. So I'm going to work my way through all of the A's. I don't think it'll take me very long, and then I might come back and put a sample page together so I can show you what kind of thing I'm aiming at. Just to give myself an idea of what I'm aiming at as well. I like the idea of putting tabs on the pages. I might leave some of them open, or I might I haven't decided yet. I might just find different ways to use some of these different border ideas. Maybe it'll end up being more like a scrapbook of stitchery than a dictionary of stitchery, but either way I'm going to enjoy it. And I want to work in things like this lovely little piece that I found in amongst the tangled threads. 1 and 3pence halfpenny. Probably pinned onto a piece of embroidery cloth or something. I think it'd probably be nice to do sort of 6 or 8 samples and make a page, and then do 6 or 8 more samples and make another page. I think I'll probably do it that way. So when I next come back, I'll have some more samples all ready to go, and I will sit and go through a page. Right, I have just popped back quickly because now I've got started, I can't wait to carry on. So I've put together a little kind of collage of some of the pieces of fabric from my basket, and I'm going to take all of this downstairs tonight. I'm going to so these are my pages kind of laid out. I've done the Algerian eye stitch and the arrowhead. I've still got I knew running stitch. There's an Armenian edge stitch and antique stitch to do in the A section. So I'm thinking I can fit all 4 of them onto this one page. I've pulled out the threads I'm going to use for tonight and take downstairs with me. This one's tending to break. I'm having to be gentle with it, but I still think it's usable. These seem to be fine. I've decided I'm going to sometimes use these little snippets I already had to embroider the name of the stitch on, but sometimes I will just do as Christine has done, and like with the Armenian edge stitch and Antwerp edging stitch, she's backstitched the name of them on there and then done the edging stitch around the piece, which is a really good idea to me. So I will probably do that, and I will fill any other little spaces that are left, any other little nooks and crannies, I will fill with examples of the stitches as well. And then later on I'll come back and do maybe a bit of thread painting here, and maybe some, just extra embroidery, whatever I feel like doing. I've got this little piece of lace here, but I did think about putting that piece of lace, Deborah's mum's piece of lace there as well, which I also really like. I can't decide. I'll maybe take them both downstairs with me and see how I feel. In some ways I would quite like to get that stitch safely into the book. Yeah, so some of these pieces, like with this one, I might just do a whole lot of straight stitching on, which I always like doing, and make this, yeah, I'll see. But this is what I'm going to take downstairs with me. So next time I come back, I will have stitched these down, finished the A stitches. Oh, of course, the other thing I've got to do somewhere is fit my actual A in. I'll probably put it up there. And I might do as Christina's done and use some of the actual stitches on the page in the letter. So yeah, next time I come back, I will have pretty much put these pages together as far as I can put them together at the moment. I'll be ready to move on to the bees. I think there weren't very many A stitches, Christine said, so I think there will be more. The bees won't all go on one spread, but I'll play it by ear as I go along. Okay, right, really going now. Bye.